WGNY and WJGK HD2, Newburgh, Middletown. WGNY News, Talk, Sports.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a very special Sunday edition of Jake's Hot Takes. I'm your host, Jake McVey, and you might notice something. Whoa, wait a minute. You can see me right now. I know. I'm home from college on spring break, and I am feeling good to be here. How is everybody doing today? I'm feeling pretty good, but last night I was not feeling so good. The Knicks took an absolutely tragic loss to the Golden State Warriors with a final score of 97-94, and man, this is one that I really wanted. Hold on, wait a minute. Where's Matt? Oh, that's right, okay. Everybody, Matt got abducted by aliens. I got a phone call from him the other day. They were like, hey, we have your co-host. If you want him, $25 and we'll send him back. And I'm trying to barter them down. I'm trying to hustle them down to $20 because, 25 is steep. 25 is steep. But no, I should have Matt back for this Thursday's episode, which will also be live in studio. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Anyway, back to the Knicks. We're talking about what's really important here. The Knicks had a tragic fall to the Golden State Warriors, 97-94. There was a lot of drama, a lot of beef, a lot of extracurricular activities that came with this game. I'll be getting more into that a little bit later, but this is one that I think I as a Knicks fan, and I think I can probably speak for a lot of Knicks fans and a lot of Knicks players, this was one that really just took my heart out of my chest and crushed it in front of me. This is just, with everything that was surrounding it, specifically for Karl Anthony Towns, I wanted this game for him more than anybody else, but it didn't come to fruition. Unfortunately, a lot of sloppy play on our part, combined with a couple really good plays on Golden State's part, gave them the edge over the Knicks. Let's just dive right into the player reviews, because we got some guys that really performed well, and then we got some guys that we're going to have a serious conversation about. But let's start with the good, and we'll work our way down to the bad. So starting off, I think the best player on the court for the Knicks last night was Karl Anthony Towns. He had something to prove this game. He had to prove that he wasn't scared of Jimmy Butler and that he wasn't soft. Cat finished the game with a whopping 29 points, 12 rebounds, and 3 assists. A nice little double-double for him. He shot 12 for 21 from the field and 3 for 5 from behind the arc. It was a good performance out of him. Look, I saw a lot of the offensive versatility that you get a guy like Karl Anthony Towns for. He had a decent night shooting on the perimeter and in the mid-range. He had a great night driving to the basket. It seemed like nobody on that court could stop Karl Anthony Towns when he wanted to get to the basket. And he even got a little work in the postgame, a floater here and there. Overall, I just, it was a great game out of Cat. And unfortunately, the rest of the team wasn't really able to capitalize off of the great performance, especially in the absence of Jalen Brunson. You could really tell that they were missing his presence this game. This is the type of game where I could 100% see us pulling away in the final minutes with Jalen Brunson, especially considering Karl Anthony Towns scored 11 points straight in the fourth quarter to evaporate that Golden State lead. That's when I really thought we might come away with this one, when Cat just started going off, just buckets on buckets on buckets. But, I'm sitting here now, I'm sad about it, so I guess we know how that story ends. OG Anunoby, another phenomenal night. He has been one of the most consistent bright spots for this team, game in and game out. He had another great defensive performance, coming with 3 steals and 1 block. He really looked like he did a great job of getting Draymond off of his rhythm a little bit, and I think that is ultimately what we were hoping for. More to come on Draymond a little bit later, but like I said, 23 points out of him, 9 rebounds and 2 assists. Pretty much exactly what you'd expect from Anunoby at this point in the season. I think the all defense looks needs to start going Anunoby's way. I think if he doesn't make that all defense team, I'd be pretty disappointed, because he's easily the best two-way player on the court for the Knicks right now. I mean, he is he's I've said this before about Anunoby, but the thing that makes him such a valuable player to this team is that he will generate no matter what. He can generate off of offensive rebounds. He can generate off of his own merits. He doesn't need anybody else on the court to necessarily be supporting him in order for him to produce. And those are the guys that are important. They're not necessarily like your MVP types. I wouldn't expect Anunoby to go off for pretty much anything more than like 30 or 40. Don't expect anything more than a consistent 20-ish points out of Anunoby. I wouldn't anticipate a monster game coming out of him, but it's consistent. And that's what this team needs right now, especially with the Brunson injury, especially with the issues that are going on with the bench and the drama surrounding Tom Thibodeau. I think what this team needs right now is just an anchor guy who can go out there, put up a decent stat line every night, and play some good hard-nosed defense. And that's what Anunoby's doing. So, OG Anunoby, I appreciate you, man. Thank you. Another great performer from last night, Deuce McBride, had a pretty good shooting night. I mean, not necessarily as efficient as you'd like it, but hey, you can't argue with 19 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists. Shot 8 from 17 from the field and 50% from 3. Look, all things considered, it's not like we were expecting Deuce McBride to, step up and fill the role that Brunson filled. It's big shoes to fill. Despite Brunson's smaller stature, they're big shoes for this team. So recently, McBride has been performing decently well, and I'm pretty happy with his performance. Someone that I am much happier about the performance of last night was Mikal Bridges, who recently, aside from his big buzzer beater against Portland, has not been looking so hot. He has been having some pretty abysmal performances, but tonight he looked pretty good. He had 19 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 assists. Again, nobody was really massive in the assist game, except for one person, but we're going to get to him later. I know, I keep on saying it. I keep on saying we're going to get to him later, but it will be coming up on him soon. The passing game out of everyone tonight just didn't look like what it was. I mean, that is definitely just on account of Brunson's absence from the team, but Brunson's absence is not an excuse. The reality of the situation is Brunson is going to be out for the next at least 3 weeks, I think the injury report said. And we can't just not have ball movement for the next 3 weeks while we wait for Brunson to get healthy. And, it's something that the team is definitely going to have to address moving forward. That being said, Josh Hart, oh my goodness. Josh, I love you, Josh. I love you, Josh. I think that Josh Hart is an incredibly talented basketball player, and I think that he is incredibly valuable to this team. But what on earth were you doing last night, Josh Hart? Just an abysmal performance out of him. 0 points on 0 for 7 shooting, 0 for 2 from behind the arc. A decent 7 rebounds and 7 assists. He was the assist leader on the team tonight, but that's not going to save you, Josh. It was an awful performance. And not only was it an awful performance physically, it was an incredibly low IQ performance out of Josh Hart. It was completely out of character for this guy. Usually he's your gadget guy, he can get you a few points, he can get you a few rebounds, he can get you a few assists, he can play some defense here and there, decent on the perimeter, but no, Hart looked terrible last night. And I'm hoping that it's just a result of a long road trip. We've spent the last, it feels like the last 5 weeks on the road on the West Coast, even though it's only been about 5 games. This has definitely been a long West Coast road trip. So I'm glad we're getting back home and we're getting back into the swing of things. I'm actually going to save player reviews on the bench for a little bit later. There's a whole conversation around the bench players that I think we need to start having. So we're going to pivot now to the next matchup against the Miami Heat. Finally, a home game. It has been far too long. I think the Knicks need to get back into their element a bit, back in the Garden. They were looking worse for wear against Golden State last night, and it definitely was on account of the fact that they've just been away from home for so long. It's been a long, arduous trip. They've gone from LA to San Francisco to back to LA to Portland to back to San Francisco. It's been a long situation for the Knicks. So I'm glad that they're getting back into the swing of things back in the Garden. Miami is on an absolutely terrible losing streak right now. And the Knicks need to capitalize on this. Otherwise, this will be the most embarrassing loss of the entire season. The Heat have taken losses against the Cavaliers, the Timberwolves, the Bulls, the Hornets, the Clippers, the Celtics, and the Grizzlies. Most of these are pretty good teams with a few exceptions sticking out there. I'm not exactly sure how they ended up losing to Chicago or Charlotte, but those losses happen. We know better than anyone. You can drop a game you're supposed to win every now and then. But, I mean, if the Knicks don't continue this losing streak against a battered down and demoralized Heat team, I would personally be very disappointed. I think the most important factors going into this game is Karl Anthony Towns. He needs to play with that same edge. He needs to be able to drive to the rim like he was. I know that Bam Adebayo is an incredibly stout rim defender and does a great job of kind of deterring guys from driving to the rim, but Towns needs to be aggressive in this game. We have not seen a lot of real heat, a lot of real fire out of Karl Anthony Towns. He's been doing his thing, he's been putting up good performances, but ultimately we're lacking that passion that we saw out of him last night. And maybe it was just because of the off-court drama that was going on, but I want Cat to keep this momentum going forward because he looked great last night. And realistically, as long as Cat is performing like this, the team can keep winning, especially against, less cerebral and less intelligent and much colder teams like the Miami Heat. Ironically, I mean, this team is cold as ice right now. So I think Cat is going to be very important, as well as Anunoby. Anunoby may be the only person on the court that we have right now that can guard Bam. I'm not confident in Mitchell Robinson and his ability to play long stretches of time. So Anunoby's going to have to step up, and if he can't really at least slow Bam down, at least disrupt the rhythm, I don't know where this game is going to go. It will be a disaster if Anunoby isn't able to disrupt the rhythm of Bam Adebayo, disrupt the passing lanes and be a staunch rim defender. Josh Hart needs to do better as well because this team has a lot of guys on the wing, a lot of guys that can shoot, and we're going to need some perimeter defense. I mean, I have no idea who he's actually going to be guarding against this team. If I had to guess, probably some combination of Tyler Herro, Andrew Wiggins, Duncan Robinson, and Terry Rozier. Those are guys that I don't really trust their ability to drive, but I do trust their ability to drive and pass. I do trust their ability to shoot three-pointers, and it is going to be an incredibly important matchup that Josh Hart is able to capitalize defensively on these guys who aren't as physically imposing. And, Josh Hart can kind of use some of his muscle in that situation. And then, of course, we're going to need much bigger contributions from the bench guys. I mean, Cam Payne last night looked terrible. Mitchell Robinson last night looked terrible. Precious Achiuwa, in particular, looked terrible. And I'm not even necessarily opposed to getting Precious more minutes on the court, but the way it looks right now, he just seems like a complete liability out there. Not only is it bad physicality, he looks like he has no idea what he's doing out there. And that frustrates me. As a fan, that frustrates me. Like, we have been complaining about how the starters have been getting too many minutes for so long, and then the bench guys finally get some substantial minutes, and they don't do anything with it. It's like no wonder Thibodeau has been just playing the starters. They're the only guys on the court out there that can actually do anything. How do we expect to make a playoff run if this team can't even go, 6 or 7 guys deep? It doesn't make any sense. You're not going to win against Oklahoma or in the finals. You're not going to win against Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals or Cleveland in the Eastern Conference Finals. These are the teams that you need to think about beating if you want to win, because realistically, it's probably going to be the Thunder coming out of the West, and the Celtics and the Cavaliers. If we don't face both of them, we're definitely going to face one of them. So, I mean, that's just my 2 cents on that. I think that this game is going to be very big for momentum carrying into the end of the season. I mean, we have a stretch of games that I think are pretty winnable moving forward. Of course, we have the Miami Heat that are going to be coming to us and playing. Then we have a game at San Antonio. That team is completely demoralized with the Wemby and the Fox season-ending injuries. Charlotte, don't make me laugh. Washington, don't make me laugh. Dallas, no, don't make me laugh. And it's a stretch of games that I really think could get this team back on track. And it's almost like the games are going to ramp up with difficulty, but that is just my 2 cents. When we get back, we're going to be talking about the Draymond Green situation and then a little bit of NFL free agency. So make sure you stick around. Jake's Hot Takes. We'll be right back.
Thinking about remodeling your kitchen or bath? Wayne's Way Wholesale Cabinets has a great selection of all wood cabinets in the styles and colors to make your remodeling dreams come to life. Go to wayneswaycabinets.com for more info. Wayne's Way Cabinets, 1829 South Road, Wappingers Falls. Call 845-280-0880. Stop by and talk to Wayne today. You'll be glad you did.
Your life relies on power, all day, every day. With winter upon us, winter-related storms and power outages disrupt your home life, work life, and more. Don't be left in the dark. Call Essential Power Systems, your local Generac automatic standby power dealer, protecting your family, home, and business. Already have a Generac? Ask about maintenance, monitors, and cold weather kits. Call Mike the Generator Guy for a free estimate. 845-227-0514. Online at EssentialPowerGenerators.com. Never be powerless. Get Generac by Essential Power Systems.
Michael's Appliances presents Ask Andy, the appliance expert. Andy, what's the average amount of time for clothes to dry?
We've had customers call us up and they're timing their dryer, drying one shirt, and they can't understand why it takes an hour and a half for that one shirt to dry. If you're using an auto dry cycle, the sensors are never being touched by that one article of clothing. So consequently, it takes forever for the dryer to realize that things are done. Today, newer dryers, generally speaking, it's an hour, 70, 80, 90 minutes. It's not because we're burning tons of fuel. It's because we're using much less. Much lower temperature in the dryer overall, longer tumbling action. That helps to prevent wrinkles, and people are used to a 20-minute cycle drying. Those days are over. We used to make it very hot in the dryer and dry them very quickly. And of course, people have forgotten that then their clothes fit a Cabbage Patch doll when that happens.
Shop with the experts. Nobody knows appliances like Michael's Appliance Center, 585 East Main Street, Middletown. Online at michaelsappliance.com.
Your engine is a delicate instrument. But if you don't change the oil on a regular basis, things have a tendency to go wrong. That's why this news should be music to your ears. Because now at the Newburgh Auto Spa, you can get a free car wash with every oil change. That's right, a free car wash with every oil change.
Really?
Really. Stop into their state-of-the-art facility today and find out what quality maintenance is all about. We all need to get oil changes, so why not get a free car wash to go along with it? And while you're at it, take advantage of their 15-point vehicle inspection free of charge. That should leave you on a very happy note. Newburgh Auto Spa, located at 86 Route 17K in Newburgh. For more information, call 845-567-0009, 845-567-0009, or go online to newburghautospa.com. That's newburghautospa.com. Newburgh Auto Spa. Quick, convenient, clean.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Jake's Hot Takes. There has been a situation that I've kind of been dancing around talking about, and I want to finally address it now because I didn't want to talk about it last episode because it was still kind of a developing situation, but I think it's about time. The situation has kind of concluded. Let's talk about Draymond Green. So, in the previous matchup on this road trip against Golden State, Karl Anthony Towns did not play for quote-unquote personal reasons. And Draymond Green went on his podcast, the Draymond Green and Baron Davis show, and said, I have the quote right here, Basically, what he said was that Karl Anthony Towns dodged the game against Golden State because he was afraid of Jimmy Butler. Karl Anthony Towns and Jimmy Butler have had some conflicts, interpersonal conflicts. They were teammates in Minnesota not too long ago, and Jimmy had quite an explosive exit from that team. So Draymond went in and stirred the pot a little bit and said that, Karl Anthony Towns was dodging Jimmy because he was scared that that Jimmy was going to expose him. And after the Golden State game, last night, I think Towns proved 100% that wasn't true. He had more points and rebounds than Draymond and Jimmy Butler combined. So that's something. And the reason that Karl Anthony Towns missed the game in the first place was because a close family friend, a close associate of his girlfriend, I believe, passed away due to cancer. And that is just such a horrible situation to find yourself in. And of course Towns should have taken some time off. Of course he needs to be there to support his girlfriend and support the family of the person who passed away. And I'm not going to pry into any more of that situation. I want to talk more about how Draymond responded after finding out that Towns missed the game, not because he's scared of Jimmy, but because a family friend passed away from cancer. Draymond Green said, and this is an exact quote, "That's unfortunate. I'm sorry to hear that. That sucks. But my comments that I made were, people, what I heard was this. That's what I heard. So I do send well wishes to him and his family. That sorry does not mean anything." And Draymond knows that, because Draymond has never once cared about another person in the league or given any person in the league any kind of consideration or empathy or anything. Draymond Green is a bully who keeps his relevance by stirring the pot and flagrantly going on the court and literally attacking people. And for some reason, he continues to get a pass in the eyes of the media, he continues to get a pass in the eyes of his team, and he continues to get special treatment in the eyes of the league. Draymond Green got Karl Anthony Towns to foul out of the game last night because he had a dirty play where he hooked Towns' arm and then flailed his arms around like he was getting fouled. Towns got a foul called on him for that, and then later fouled out of the game and missed the final moments of regulation, where we definitely could have needed him, considering that the Knicks had 6 straight possessions where they didn't score any points in the final stretch of the game. I just can't believe the audacity, not only as a person, as a professional, or not only as a professional, as a person. You can tell I'm very fired up about this situation, because it frustrates me to no end that people are just willing to move on from whatever Draymond says and pretend like this whole situation can just blow over. And Draymond apologized. That's not an apology. As soon as you say, "I'm sorry, but," that apology does not mean anything, because now you're making excuses for yourself. You're not able to say, "I'm sorry, I was wrong." He's not able to say that. He needs to come up with a million reasons why, actually, I wasn't in the wrong in this situation. That's just what people were telling me. And he'll never reveal his sources, and he'll never, ever give any indication as to where he got that information, because he made it up. Nobody was talking about how Karl Anthony Towns was trying to dodge Jimmy Butler. Nobody was talking about how Karl Anthony Towns would dodge Jimmy Butler in the first place. And Draymond just wanted to stir the pot, and then when things got serious, he wasn't man enough to back down. He wasn't enough of a man to recognize his mistakes and apologize sincerely. And I think that is disgusting. And Towns responded with the most class act you possibly could. He said, I'm paraphrasing here, but he said something along the lines of, "I'm not going to let it affect me. I'm not going to let it affect the team. I'm going out here. The Knicks are my priority. I don't care about what he said." And that's the perfect response. But the team did not have the perfect response, because after the game, Towns didn't shake hands with Draymond Green, nor should he have. And the rest of the team is over there, especially Mitchell Robinson, being buddy-buddy, shaking hands and high-fiving and laughing and having a conversation. You got to have your teammates back. This guy disrespected your teammate on a level that I could not possibly imagine. And you still go up and shake hands and pal around with the guy who did it all? It's just completely abhorrent behavior. And I am so frustrated with this Knicks team that they did not have Towns' back in that situation. Like, seriously, there are so many situations where, yeah, sure, guys can have beef on the court and guys can have disagreements and conflicts, but this is just disgusting. It's disgusting. I'm sorry. And I'm getting it all out here now because I don't want to have to talk about it for the rest of the season, but I am beyond frustrated with Draymond Green. I am beyond frustrated with Mitchell Robinson, and I am beyond frustrated with any of the Knicks players who ended up having any sort of contact with Draymond Green after the game. I understand sportsmanship, but when are we going to hold Draymond to that standard of sportsmanship? Why do the Knicks have to go and be sportsmanlike when Draymond is actively disrespecting their teammate, but Draymond Green isn't going to be held accountable for actively disrespecting Karl Anthony Towns like that? Like, I'm just baffled. I'm baffled and I'm frustrated, and that is the main reason why I really wanted us to come away with that game. Because that game, if we managed to come away with that game, if Draymond lost that game against Karl Anthony Towns, we could have said 100%, Cat wasn't ducking. But unfortunately, we did lose the game, and that's just a reality that we need to come to. And I'm not making any excuses in the way of it. I mean, Draymond had a pretty below average game, but I mean, what do you expect from the NBA's most expensive backpack? I mean, Lord, if Steph Curry was not a thing, we would be talking about Draymond Green because he probably would have gone to prison for what he did on the court. I mean, goodness me. Whew. Okay, glad I got all that out of my system. I'm going to pivot now to, I talked about a topic that makes me very frustrated. Now I want to talk about a topic that I love, and that is the Kansas City Chiefs. As you all know, get your boos and your hisses out now. I am a Chiefs fan, and I'm proud of it. And I want to talk about some of their free agency moves that they got into this offseason, because I think this is, I kind of like what we're gearing up to do right now. Mostly in the way of finally going and signing an offensive tackle, San Francisco 49ers' own Jalen Moore. He's been a career backup, but he's been with the team for a while. He's played with Trent Williams, possibly one of the most talented offensive tackles the game has ever seen. And I'm honestly pretty excited about the acquisition. I mean, it's not like we're signing him to a ton of money and committing a ton of resources. There are still plenty of tackles who, with a little development, could probably fill that role. Kingsley Suma-Itea. Gosh, I'm so terrible with that name in particular. I'm sorry. I like to pride myself on being decent with names, but Kingsley's last name always throws me off. There's just a lot of vowels. And of course, Wanya Morris, who, as terrible as he was last season, is still young and still has the potential to grow and develop, and I'm just hoping that maybe an increase in the competition will actively push one of these guys ahead in the pack, because realistically we're not getting rid of Taylor. Jawan Taylor is going to be starting for us next season at the offensive tackle position, so I think it is very important that we kind of lock down the opposite side of that, because one of the biggest issues that we had as a team, especially late in the season, was that offensive tackle production. I mean, we moved Joe Thuney out there, and everybody got this idea in their head in the Super Bowl that Joe Thuney was a bum because he couldn't stop the best defensive line in the entire NFL. I mean, maybe one of the most talented defensive lines we've seen in the modern era. I don't hold that loss against Joe Thuney at all. He was playing completely out of position, but the problem I have is more with the team tackle play as opposed to Joe Thuney's tackle play anyway, and that doesn't matter. He's a Chicago Bear now, so I like the Jalen Moore signing. I like the idea of increasing the competition at tackle, and I'm excited to see what this Chiefs team is going to do with them. Next up, we're talking Elijah Mitchell. This is not a needle pusher for me whatsoever. Another San Francisco 49er that we signed. Samaje Perine left, and he was a pretty good receiving back, great on screens. So I'm hoping that Mitchell will fill the same role. We also re-signed Kareem Hunt, which I'm very happy about. We're keeping the running back duo of Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt together. And in my opinion, I think Kareem Hunt was a significantly better running back than Isaiah Pacheco last season. So I'm very happy to keep him around. I think we are keeping the better half of that duo intact while Pacheco plays, I believe this is the last season of his rookie contract. Chiefs fans, I know we love him. I know we love the energy. Don't be surprised if Kansas City doesn't end up re-signing Pacheco. As good as he overperformed vastly for his draft position. He got hurt. He came back. He hasn't really been the same. I'm withholding whether I think we should or shouldn't re-sign Pacheco until after this season, but for right now, I'm going to say don't be surprised if Pacheco doesn't make his way back onto the team. Now, with that being said, Christian Fulton, another guy that we signed to fill one of the most obvious gaps on the team, and that is the cornerback depth. I love Trent McDuffie, and I think we do have some young up-and-comers like Jaden Hicks, and I think Jalen Watson actually had a pretty good season when he played last year. He was dealing with a bit of injury, but guys like Najee Johnson and Joshua Williams, these aren't guys that you play if you want to win a Super Bowl. These guys get cooked. I mean, Williams still has the potential to develop, but I don't think Najee Johnson does. And if he's seeing the field, that means we got a serious issue at cornerback. Granted, don't be surprised if this isn't the last cornerback that the Chiefs target. Christian Fulton is pretty good, but he's never played more than 15 games in a season, so injury concern is definitely something to be worried about. And when we get back, we're going to be talking free agents, who's left, and then we're going to be talking a little more free agents, what the big teams are doing. So make sure you stick around. Jake's Hot Takes. We will be right back.
Hello, I'm Mark Guido. Thank you for making Frank Guido's Little Italy the #1 location for all of your special occasions. From an intimate family gathering to a festive affair for up to 100 guests, Little Italy is the place to go. We are experienced, professional, and affordable. Whether it's birthdays, anniversaries, reunions, retirements, rehearsal dinners, and even after funeral gatherings, Little Italy has the perfect size space with delicious food at a reasonable price. You enjoy your event and let us do all the work. Call Marie at 845-340-1682 or visit us online at frankguidoslittleitaly.com. Call Marie at 845-340-1682 or visit us online at frankguidoslittleitaly.com. Little Italy has the perfect size space with delicious food at a reasonable price. You will be glad you did. And remember, as always, come celebrate on the day of your birthday and get up to a $25 value on us.
Michael's Appliances presents Ask Andy, the appliance expert. Andy, is it bad to use fabric softener sheets?
More often than not, a fabric softener sheet helps keep the static down in your dryer. Most newer dryers, the lint screen is so fine that the oils in the fabric softener sheet actually plug up your lint screen. Reduces efficiency, causes overheating, causes the machine to kick off on high limit. So sometimes what you really want to do is not use dryer sheets. Use the same dryer sheet 2 or 3 times. Fabric softener in the washer is the better way to go. Most people don't realize that all the lint in your dryer actually comes from your washing machine. It's the agitating action that causes a problem where the clothing is scrubbing together and you end up with all the little pilling. And a fabric softener actually will help lessen the pilling if it's in the washing machine.
Shop with the experts. Nobody knows appliances like Michael's Appliance Center, 585 East Main Street, Middletown. Online at michaelsappliance.com.
What if your limited inventory had unlimited potential? What if your biggest risk was not taking one? What if you could make every move matter? Bank of America's Business Solutions can help bring your biggest what-ifs within reach. Find out how our digital tools, cutting-edge insights, and trusted expertise can work for your business. What would you like the power to do? Visit bankofamerica.com/banking for business to learn more. Bank of America is proud to be the official bank sponsor of FIFA World Cup 2026.
Confidence is knowing you're ready to handle whatever comes your way. That's what it feels like to take on your workday with Cintas. They make sure your AEDs are up to date, your fire extinguishers are tested and inspected, your floor mats are cleaned and delivered, and your workwear looks good, feels good, and is freshly laundered with the Cintas Apparel Plus program. So are you ready to take on today? Visit Cintas.com and get ready for the workday.
Welcome back, sports fans, and particularly welcome back free agency fans, because this has been quite an exciting season of free agency. I mean, explosive right off the bat. And we've talked about a lot of the big free agents signings, where they've gone and how they're impacting their own teams. We've talked about some teams specifically. Now I want to talk about who's left, because we're kind of settling into this post-free agency boom environment where there's only a couple really big names left on the chopping block who haven't quite found a home yet. And I think those are kind of the interesting guys to talk about, where they can possibly fit in, what kind of role they could fill on a team, and just what can possibly happen with these big names that are still left on the board. And the first guy that I want to talk about is Mr. Amari Cooper. Former Buffalo Bill, former Cleveland Brown, former Dallas Cowboy, and former Oakland Raider. Can't believe I remember what teams Amari Cooper's been playing for, but he is definitely past his physical prime as a wide receiver, but he still did find a little bit of value in Buffalo's offense. But I wouldn't necessarily take that as an indicator on whether or not he can be a 1 or a 2, because the way that Buffalo played last season, their offense distributed the ball to so many different targets. It makes sense that a guy that came in mid-season couldn't quite catch up and adjust to the style and to build chemistry with Josh Allen. What I'm saying is I'm not surprised that Amari Cooper didn't perform well in Buffalo, and I'm definitely not saying that he can't perform well somewhere else. And I think the best fit for Amari Cooper right now, they got a decent amount of cap space, and they have really been struggling in the wide receiver department recently. It's the LA Chargers. I think he'd make a great pairing to Ladd McConkey. I think Quentin Johnston needs to have his targets reduced. I think he's terrible at football. I say terrible at football. He's a professional. I'm not good at football either. Don't get that wrong. But for NFL wide receiver standards, he is definitely below average. And I think Amari Cooper would be a great cheap option. You can bring him in on a 1 or 2 year deal, get him in a Chargers uniform, and see what he can do with Justin Herbert. I think that would be a great signing for the Chargers. And speaking of the Chargers, Asante Samuel Jr. He has been on and off these last couple seasons. He had a couple really good seasons during the that era of Chargers football where everybody kept on saying that they actually had a shot at a deep run in the playoffs. I'm talking like 2 or 3 years ago when they took that really bad loss to Jacksonville in the playoffs. He's been around for a while in LA, and he's definitely been a good piece for them. And one of the most exciting prospects for where he could end up next, to me, is Washington. The Commanders have notoriously had a problem with their defensive backs over the course of last season. I mean, Emmanuel Forbes, poor guy, was crying on the sideline after getting cooked by A.J. Brown so many times. Like, when you have your players on the sideline crying, you definitely need to start reconsidering. Maybe, they might need to pay a little more than you might be wanting to for Asante Samuel Jr., but I think this guy is very consistent. He's very good at what he does, and I think that he could fill the role. The Washington's probably Washington's biggest need, all things considered. I mean, they kind of have the wide receiver room figured out. They definitely got their quarterback room figured out. They got the O-line figured out. They got the defensive line figured out. I think linebackers and defensive backs are really the only thing that Washington doesn't have at least a decent core of. So I think that Asante Samuel Jr. to Washington would be great. Let's talk about the big one. Aaron Rodgers. He says that he is not committing to Pittsburgh or New York until Minnesota has made a decision. And to me, that sounds like Minnesota is at the top of Rodgers' list, because obviously he's suspending talks until Minnesota makes their decision. I have gone on the record multiple times saying that I think an Aaron Rodgers signing to the New York Giants would set the franchise back like 25 years. I think it is the worst possible move. I think if anything, New York should go for a quarterback in the draft. Hopefully maybe Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders could fall to you, assuming the Titans maybe take Abdul Carter first overall. There's been a lot of talk about that. But point is, I think that Rodgers is probably going to end up in Minnesota as a bridge guy. They'll probably start him for a couple games. It seems like McCarthy is still dealing with an injury, so wouldn't surprise me if they wanted to have at least a decent backup in the event that McCarthy does get hurt. The only problem with that is the money, because I'm sure Minnesota does not want to blow a bag, so to speak, on Aaron Rodgers, and with the potential to not even start him for the entire season. So I think the whole conversation around Aaron Rodgers and where he's going to end up is getting tiring. I'm very tired of this Aaron Rodgers talk, personally. I don't care if he signs with Minnesota or Pittsburgh. I do care if he signs with New York. My mom is a New York Giants fan, so shout out my mom. Hi, Mom. So, I always like to keep an eye on the Giants, and I think it would be a terrible move for the Giants to sign Aaron Rodgers. And let's move on now to Stephon Diggs, former Houston wide receiver. He was in Buffalo before that. I don't think any team is willing to commit to him as a one option anymore unless they are seriously desperate. And thank goodness there is a team that is seriously desperate for a wide receiver one right now. That is, of course, the New England Patriots. They have all the cap space in the world, and they have absolutely no one to spend it on. I think Diggs elevated Josh Allen when he first arrived in Buffalo. He elevated Josh Allen's play. He didn't make Josh Allen, but he definitely made it easier for Josh Allen to develop as a player. And I think that the Patriots should have this mentality with Diggs and Drake May. I think pairing a veteran wide receiver along with a younger rookie, it allows for easier connection and easier sort of understanding of these guys. I think Diggs would be a great signing for New England, and I think that he would really bolster that offense in a way that might shock a lot of people. I mean, he was good in Houston. He just couldn't get the looks because of Tank Dell and Nico Collins. So moving on now, I want to talk about some team situations because Dallas has done nothing once again. This is the second offseason in a row that Dallas has said that they're going to go all in and they're going to get some talent on the roster and they're going to make some big moves. And right now, Dallas's biggest move is signing Javonte Williams. And I don't know if you know this, but Javonte Williams is not very good. He was terrible in Denver last season. And I can only imagine what Dallas's plan for him is. I'm almost thinking maybe they're trying to recreate like a David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs situation, where you take a running back who was kind of getting clowned on and kind of wasn't doing very good, because people forget we made fun of Montgomery like he was a bum when he was in Chicago, and then he got to Detroit, and all of a sudden, when paired with Jahmyr Gibbs and paired with a good offensive line, he could actually get some stuff done. So, you know, I'm not writing off Javonte Williams 100%, but it also does kind of confirm in my head that Dallas is probably going to be looking at Ashton Genty in the draft. So if you're a fan of any other team and you want Ashton Genty, call up your GM now. Ask him to trade up ahead of Dallas, because it looks like Dallas is going to be taking some power at the running back position. Now let's talk about Carolina, because on paper, what it seems like they're doing is good. You know, they're acquiring talented players from talented teams and they're paying them a lot of money. But what I see right now is Carolina digging themselves into a super deep financial hole. I like some of the signings. I really don't like some of the other ones. Tershawn Wharton, former Chief. I love the guy. I think he's a great player. I think he's a great locker room presence. He's always been such a great personality for the team, but he does not deserve 3 years and $54 million. Plain and simple. He was just all right. Not 3 years, $54 million worthy, you know? And then the really bad overpay for Carolina has been J.C. Horn. They drafted him. He's their guy. They love him. It was time for an extension. 4 years, $100 million with $70 million guaranteed. And this guy has never played a full season of NFL football. He's been dealing with so many injuries. I could not imagine shilling out this much money for a guy that has never played a full season of football. It's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous, and I'm not surprised with Carolina, because we know how terrible the management is. We know how terrible the ownership is. Why are we surprised that Carolina's overpaying these guys? And then the last guy I want to mention is Trevon Moehrig, who 3 years, $51 million. Again, I just don't think he deserves that much, honestly. It doesn't make sense, and Carolina is going to be significantly worse because of it. So just, don't be surprised. Carolina was my pick to have a huge leap next season, but after this offseason, I'm not so sure about that. They're going to be in Capland for a while, so that's not going to be fun. The last move I want to mention is Joey Bosa to the Buffalo Bills. I really thought that Joey Bosa was going to be reuniting with his brother in San Francisco. There was a lot of reports coming out that San Fran and Joey were both interested in each other, but then he went and signed with Buffalo. So I really don't like this move on Buffalo's part. I think that they kind of proved that, going and signing these veteran edge rushers is not a great idea with Von Miller. I mean, Von Miller was decent for them, but it's not like he was ever really a dominant force. But that being said, I mean, they definitely did learn something with Von Miller, because they did not commit to Joey Bosa for as long as they committed to Von Miller, only signing a 1-year, $12.6 million deal. I guess at the price point you're getting him at, I don't hate the move out of Buffalo, but he's been so inconsistent and has had so many problems with injury throughout his career. I understand that he's a Bosa brother and that these guys were incredibly talented players coming out of college and were touted in very high regard, but I don't know. I just don't think this is one of those moves where I don't even care. We're going to see Joey Bosa out in a Buffalo uniform next season, and it's not going to evoke any emotional response from me whatsoever. When we get back, it is time to have the conversation. We're going to pivot back to basketball, and we're going to be talking about the Mikal Bridges and Tom Thibodeau situation, because that has been unfolding recently. And I wanted to give my 2 cents on that because I think it is an important conversation topic to have. So make sure you stay tuned. Jake's Hot Takes. We'll be right back.
Michael's Appliances presents Ask Andy, the appliance expert. Andy, what makes my oven smell so bad when I self-clean?
Self-clean, my favorite weapon in the world. Self-cleaning is a brutal environment. Most people don't think about it. They hear self-clean. I'm not really sure if they're picturing scrubbing bubbles inside there, scrubbing, but what's really happening is we're heating the oven up hot enough to carbonize protein. We're going to take the food stuff that's left in your stove, and we're actually going to carbonize it. We're going to turn it to dust. So we're 700 degrees. So why does it smell bad? You're setting fire to a chicken. Today, a lot of the new stoves, because of the energy guidelines, there is no real self-clean anymore. They don't want those high temperatures. It's a huge waste of energy. It's very easy. You don't have to get on your hands and knees and your back doesn't hurt. You're not scrubbing the stove, but we use a ton of energy to clean the inside of that stove by heating it up.
Shop with the experts. Nobody knows appliances like Michael's Appliance Center, 585 East Main Street, Middletown. Online at michaelsappliance.com.
Your life relies on power all day, every day. With winter upon us, winter-related storms and power outages disrupt your home life, work life, and more. Don't be left in the dark. Call Essential Power Systems, your local Generac automatic standby power dealer, protecting your family, home, and business. Already have a Generac? Ask about maintenance, monitors, and cold weather kits. Call Mike the Generator Guy for a free estimate. 845-227-0514. Online at EssentialPowerGenerators.com. Never be powerless. Get Generac by Essential Power Systems. You've long known that Newburgh Auto Spa on Route 17K utilizes top caliber products and the latest technology to give your vehicle the proper maintenance it needs. Whether it be a computerized soft cloth car wash, detailing consisting of a comprehensive bumper-to-bumper cleaning of your entire interior and exterior, or a fuel-efficient oil change from a trained technician, Newburgh Auto Spa is the place to go. Now, Newburgh Auto Spa is a full-service automotive center. That's right, Newburgh Auto Spa now offers tires, brakes, rotors, tune-ups, alternators, and more, all with the same professionalism and quality you've become accustomed to. For a full list of automotive services offered in specials, go to NewburghAutoSpa.com. Whether you need a basic car wash, a quick oil change, or now more extensive automotive service, Newburgh Auto Spa is the place to go. Newburgh Auto Spa, quick, convenient, clean, located at 86 Route 17K and online at NewburghAutoSpa.com. Now offering a full range of automotive services. Newburgh Auto Spa, quick, convenient, clean.
Davis Furniture in Poughkeepsie is having a floor model clearance sale, up to 70% off. That's right, Davis Furniture needs to make room for new arrivals and is having a floor model clearance sale with up to 70% off. At Davis Furniture on Route 9 in Poughkeepsie, all their furniture is American-made and chemical-free. You and your family deserve the Davis Furniture difference and a healthier life. DavisFurnitureOnline.com.
Welcome back, Knicks fans. There is a situation unfolding in New York right now, and I want to talk about it because there's a lot of weird it feels like nobody involved is really willing to open up about this situation right now and really have a conversation about what's going on internally. And I'm not sure if it's because they don't want to deal with the media pressure, which I'm sure is just a perfectly valid reason to not be open about the meetings that are happening within the team. But everyone's being kind of weird about it, and that is the Mikal Bridges and Tom Thibodeau conversation about the minutes, or did it happen, did it not happen situation. Basically, the story is that Mikal Bridges claims that he and Tom Thibodeau sat down and had a private meeting where they discussed the starters getting too many minutes on the court in the recent season. And if you look at the statistics, this is not a surprise at all that this would be a concern. Mikal Bridges himself leads the entire NBA in minutes, and Josh Hart is following right behind him in second place, and pre-injury, Jalen Brunson was 10th on that list. So we have 3 guys that are starting for us that are within the top 10 most minutes played in the NBA all season, and it's been clearly causing some issues. I mean, you can ask any Knicks fan, and they're concerned. I'm concerned. Thibodeau seems to be the only one that isn't concerned about it. And to make the situation even more weird, Thibodeau himself claims that the conversation between Mikal Bridges and himself never happened in the first place. So now I'm thinking to myself, like, if there's 2 schools of thought to look at this through. There's the school of thought where Tibbs is telling the truth and Mikal Bridges is making up a story about having a meeting. And then there's the school of thought where Mikal Bridges is telling the truth and Tibbs is trying to keep this under wraps for whatever reason. I see the latter as the much more likely situation, but I do just want to address kind of the hilarity of the first situation, the idea that Mikal Bridges could be lying to media about having a conversation with Tom Thibodeau about the minutes, and Tibbs comes out and he's like, I have no idea what this guy is talking about. But based on the evidence, it seems that Thibodeau is for some reason denying that this conversation happened. And in a way, I kind of understand, but in another way, it does kind of frustrate me as a fan, because I would like the Knicks to be open and transparent about the conversations that are really concerning the fans, because this minutes discussion has been a discussion all year. I mean, you could argue that the injuries that came mid-season to OG Anunoby and Josh Hart, and especially Jalen Brunson, could be a result of playing for too long. I mean, basketball is a physical sport. It takes a toll on the body. You're doing a lot of running, jumping, pivoting, stealing, snatching, doing whatever. And it just is, it's not good for a player to be playing so many minutes. And I understand that guys, the starters need to play, but at the same time, look at how many teams don't have guys in the top 10 for minutes when before the Jalen Brunson injury, the Knicks had 3 different guys. It's just a very frustrating conversation. But after last night's game, I want to kind of redefine what this argument is about, because clearly the bench players on the Knicks are not prepared to be receiving substantial time. And that really stinks, because this was a bench that, you know, we were excited about, we were willing to rally behind, but you look at the minutes, and the bench players did get more minutes than they usually did last night. I mean, especially with all the did not plays. PJ Tucker didn't play, Antoine Watson, DeLon Wright, and Tyler Kolek all didn't play. So those were we only had 4 guys coming off the bench last night. So it makes sense that they would get more minutes, but the production was awful. Precious Achiuwa, oh my gosh, he was terrible. 0 points, 10 minutes, 1 shot attempted, 1 rebound, just terrible. 1 steal and 1 turnover. So he perfectly balanced the turnover game. Just an awful performance out of him. Mitchell Robinson, again, looked exhausted after a couple minutes on the court. It's like, you know, the discussion has been like, you know, we're going to ease Robinson back in. We'll give him like stretches of like 6 minutes. Then we might up it to like stretches of 8 minutes. And then we'll go from there. We'll kind of feel him out, make sure he doesn't re-injure himself before the playoffs. But he went out there and it looked like after like a minute and 20 seconds, he looked completely exhausted. And I'm willing to throw the blame on Robinson's performance last night on the, on just the fact that it was a long road trip. It's the first time that Robinson has been back for a substantial amount of games, and sometimes the body just isn't ready for that. And I'm willing to accept that as the answer to the problem now. But Mitchell Robinson better get his conditioning under check, because we do not have a shot at a deep playoff run without at least a little bit of size, a little bit of power on the inside. And I love Karl Anthony Towns for what he does for us, but he is not that guy. And Mitchell Robinson is that guy. So very concerning performance out of Mitchell Robinson last night. Campaign, he just goes out there and he just chucks up whatever he sees. It's like it, you know, I understand that that's the role that he fills. Let's get as many shots off as we can. Hopefully he'll make a few. Last night he didn't. He shot 0 from 4 from the field and just so happened to shoot 0 for 4 from 3 too. He took nothing but 3-pointers last night. It's the fact that he can't even fathom playing a different play style other than catch and shoot 3-point shots. It's frustrating, and it makes me concerned, especially with Brunson being out for the foreseeable future of this team, the very near future. I'm not talking like next season. I'm talking like the rest of this season. Landry Shamet had a good performance a few nights ago against Portland, but again, just didn't show up today. 2 points on 3 rebounds, 0 assists again. The only person off the bench to even record an assist was Cam Payne, and that is just completely unacceptable. As a basketball team, you should know how to pass the ball, and it seemed like nobody knew how to pass the ball last night. But the bench players in particular got me very frustrated because they got more minutes than they usually did. Shamet played 21 minutes, and Mitchell Robinson played 16. That's more than we've seen out of these guys in recent time. Cam Payne and Achua both got 10 minutes. That's usually about the average that they play, but it was just incredibly frustrating to have this argument that, oh, the bench players should be getting more time. And then Thibodeau finally listens, and it takes, Mikal Bridges needing to sit him down in a private meeting and tell him, like, I can't do this anymore. It's not, quote, it's not fun on the body is what he said. And just seeing that Thibodeau finally did listen, and he finally did give the bench guys more of a look, and they played terribly. It is going to justify Thibodeau running our guys into the ground for the rest of the season, because if he knows if he puts those bench guys out there, they're just not going to perform. And it breaks my heart because I see how passionate this Knicks team is, especially the starters, especially Hart and Bridges and Towns and Anunoby and Brunson. And just, man, it stinks because our worst fear was that injuries were going to come up because guys were getting too many minutes. And then our other worst fear was that the bench was never going to be able to perform. I'm pretty sure right now the Knicks are still dead last in bench minutes and bench points. So the bench is bad. There's really no way to get around it. And I understand that when Deuce is coming off the bench again, when Brunson is healthy, when Deuce is back, that is definitely going to help the bench situation, just having more guys in the rotation. But as of right now, man, it's just pitiful. It's pitiful, and it makes me sad that after basically having to grovel at Thibodeau's feet all season to give these guys a break, they finally get their break, and then Thibodeau is immediately proven right. I'm frustrated, and I think that in addition to making some changes to the bench during this offseason, I think Thibodeau needs to go, because even though he was right in this case, I'm still blaming the Brunson injury on the fact that he was playing so many minutes. I think he got up to like 42 or 43 minutes in that game, and he injured himself. And it's like, no wonder he injured himself. He was playing 42 minutes, 43 minutes per game on the road, on a road trip, when he had already played 2 games within a week where he had played over 36, 37 minutes. So it's just the minutes conversation is so frustrating, and I think that there's a lot of reasons that Thibodeau should be out. His inability to adjust offensive and defensive schemes. He just says, we'll just keep on trying the same thing over and over again, and hopefully it'll work. It's frustrating, and the whole conversation around this minutes talk is frustrating. I feel very frustrated for Mikal Bridges because, even though he is a workhorse type of player, even though I'm sure he can handle those minutes, it wouldn't surprise me if part of his performance was just coming out of sheer exhaustion, especially on these long stretches. I mean, it's no surprise that Bridges always performs significantly better when he's playing close to home, and it's not just like the usual advantage that you get from a home court, being on the home court. It's like Bridges, it's like a direct proportion where the further Bridges is away from home, the more likely he is to underperform. So I don't know how you can look at situations and statistics like that and not be open to giving the bench guys more minutes. But then, like I just said, it's like a never-ending vicious cycle where we complain about the minutes, Thibodeau reduces the starter minutes, increases the bench player minutes, the bench players underperform, and then Thibodeau's proven right, and we give the starters their minutes back. It's just a disaster, and I think it's very important to manage expectations going into this last stretch of the season. There's going to be a lot of good times, but there might be some bad times. So Knicks fans, we're going to hang in there together. We're going to get it done, and that is pretty much everything that I have for you all today. Thank you for listening to Jake's Hot Takes on WGNY 94.5. I have been Jake McVey. Make sure you go follow us on Instagram at Jake's Hot Takes WGNY. We got all sorts of great announcements. We're going to be talking some hot takes over there. So make sure you send in your hot takes into the DMs, and we might do some fan takes on air. Make sure you stay tuned for next Thursday. Matt is going to be back, so it's going to be an exciting show. Thank you, everyone, so much for listening. I've been your host, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
WGNY and WJGK HD2, Newburgh, Middletown. WGNY News, Talk, Sports.